Hello, my name is Marquita Brown, and today I'm doing a capstone project for my 12th grade class. It's English, and today I will be discussing two poems. One called Beowulf, and the other one called Attitude. And these poems are two great poems. I read and I like them. So I'm going to describe them to you guys in my own words, if that makes sense. And I'm going to try not to be too long. So, first things first, I'm going to start off by introducing them. I'm going to start off with my first poem, which is Beowulf. I Beowulf, but whichever is easier. Beowulf is about problem that they have. It's really interesting if you like fictional characters and stuff like that. So to start off the introduction, one thing you need to know is that the author, but it is believed to be age of 700 and 750. But it was not published, which basically means that the poem went through many different people and they just decided to stop, I guess, and just write it. So we don't know. That's why we don't know who the author is. And it got published in 1815, but it was believed to have got written in the 700s or 750s. Beowulf is, like I said, a good poem. And this king, I don't know how to pronounce it, had a problem in his case, so he needed Beowulf to come fix it. The problem was that they had a monster or a giant, whichever you choose to call it, and he tortured the kingdom and killed folks, and so the king couldn't face the monster himself. So I guess that's why he needed Beowulf to come. So Beowulf arrived with him and a couple of other folks that came with him, and they made up a plan to kill the monster. The monster name was Grendel. They made up a plan to kill him. So they pretended to be some people sleeping in this little hallway thing. Busts through the doors and he starts killing people in there that were sleeping. And he reached Beowulf and the people that he were with, and they fought and stuff like that. And then Beowulf ended up winning in the end. I think he cut his head off. But one thing that the king failed to mention is that Beowulf he was. So the mother, so she came back to the kingdom and she started killing people too. And Beowulf's head was on the wall of the castle, so she took his head back. And the king again called Beowulf to come fix this issue. And so he went to the mother's living place. I think it was the cave, underwater cave. But Beowulf went there, and the surrounding area was so weird because, like, if I'm saying this right, the outside of the water was cold, and then, like, the water was boiling hot. And it had all these different kind of creatures in it. And it's known if someone went there to fight Beowulf's mother that they never came out alive. So Beowulf was risking a lot. So he went into the water with all of his armor and stuff on. He went into the water, and when he went into the water, he and the mother attacked him while in the water, so they were fighting. And then I think he swam to the bottom, and then it was like an opening, and it was normal there. And they fought some more there. And she seen the mom, well, Beowulf. Yeah, Beowulf seen Grendel's body, and there was this big old sword hanging. So he used that to kill the mother. But then, once the fight was over, the people that he came with, they left him because they thought he was dead. Nobody ever came back. So Beowulf went back to the king, said, "Hey, I killed his mother and I killed him," and he went by his way. And later in the story, he became a king himself, but he ended up dying. But I think the point of that poem is to show bravery, which he was, because no one else probably would have done it. And yeah, I like that part most because he was brave, and a lot of people in the world today are that brave. I don't think that the story is true, but who knows? Probably was. And the other poem that I wanted to talk about is by Charles Swindoll. It was published in 1993. It's not a very long poem. It's called Attitude. It's not that long, but I like that one also because it talks about life, like how a person reacts to things and the outcome of how things can change our life. You might not, if you read it, you might not get all of that from it, but it's basically talking about your attitude. Like, if I say some bad words to you, how are you going to react to me? Like, what's going to be your reaction? And I think he's basically saying that Charles Swindoll was basically saying that we own the right to control our attitude. Don't let anybody else control your attitude. Because he was saying stuff like, I actually don't remember, but I did read it. It was a really good poem. I'm looking it up. I know he said a lot of stuff about life and your attitude. Attitude by Charles Swindoll. Yeah, okay, so he was like, the longer I live, the more I realize the impact of attitude on life. Attitude to me is more important than facts, is more important than the past, the education, and money. The circumstances, the failures, the successes. And it's more important than what people think, say, or do. It's also more important than appearance or skills. It would break a company, a church, a home. And that's true, because if you come at someone with a bad attitude, then you just ruin your first impression. And that's why if you work at a fast food restaurant or something, that's why they always tell you we need people who can have a good attitude. When you see someone, you can smile at them. If someone has a problem with you, that you'll be able to fix their problem without making the problem worse. And that's basically what he's talking about. People need to own the right to being able to control their attitude or something like that. And to compare both poems, to my opinion, I think that they're both the same because Beowulf's attitude was the reason he got through not one but two fights between two other people. Well, between two people that could have potentially killed him in those fights, even though he was a little dinged up afterwards. And yeah, so that's how I think they really, and how they differ is because Charles was saying you should have an attitude, good attitude. Don't forget that you have your attitude. Think about what's going to happen when you react to something, is what he was saying. And so the king and Beowulf was scared. And so that means his attitude to me wasn't as great because he was scared. And he chose not to fight for his kingdom, but get someone else to do it. And not only was he scared, he didn't tell Beowulf about Grendel's mother. And that also caused more trauma or something like that towards Beowulf because he thought he was done with the fight, thought he could go home and stuff like that, but then he had to turn around and fight another person. And so that's how they differ. One poem is embrace your attitude, and then the other one was talking about a king who was scared to defend his own kingdom, and he had to go get someone else to do it. And if I had to recommend a poem, I would choose, because they're both great, but I would choose Swindle's poem because his poem relates more on life. And like I said in the beginning, I don't think that Beowulf is real. So I would choose Swindle's because I can use that in life. I always think that I should have a great attitude wherever I go. And there's some people who can test that a little bit. And I think that his poem helps out a lot with that kind of situation. And if you're like into Star Wars or magic, vampires, werewolves, stuff like that, then Beowulf would be a good poem to choose if you read the two. And I think that's all that I have to say about those two poems. Poems. They were both great. I love both of them. But at the end, I still choose Charles' poem instead.